Hey, all you Ascendi GMs, and welcome to a special episode of Rise of the GM. I'm Adam. I'm one half of our team here. Today's a special episode. It's not our normal episode format with Matthew and I having a convo, and it's also going to be a shorter one with me just taking some time to talk about a fun and sometimes dangerous aspect of the campaign, which is gift giving. Whether it's a magical item, a boon from a powerful patron, or even a cursed item, gifts are a great tool in your GM kit that can have massive impact on characters and the story, whether it's an epic campaign or more of a crunchy dungeon crawl. Either one really works. You can use gifts as a way to introduce new plot points to your story, to foster character development and bonds. It even set up a twist that will have payoff later for you. Some comes with strings attached, or worse for your players, they can act as a Trojan horse type offering that lets some evil or betrayal into the story. So that's what we're going to kind of talk about today here. Today, what I'm briefly going to talk about on this continuum of gifts in our games is helpful boons, moving to maybe cursed or deceptive gifts that come with hidden consequences. So let's talk about the good first. Gifts that maybe empower or even reward your characters. When it comes to strictly helpful gifts, gifts in TTRPGs often serve as a reward for big accomplishments or as expressions of trust between the characters and the NPCs. A classic example would be a powerful magic item that's given after a quest is successful, or even just kind of the idea of loot in a game that's being divided up after a battle could kind of fall into that, especially if it's given specifically to empower these characters. Something like an heirloom sword that's been passed down through generations, or maybe a ring that gives a character a special magical ability could play this role. We've talked before about magic items and that being a great way to boost a party's power, but they also have great story potential, and we never want to forget that. That could be part of a character's growth or a catalyst for it to begin. And with these, the player is empowered both mechanically and narratively. It's not just about getting a +1 or some extra like magical ability, but it also can help push the story forward as well. In that realm, I really love the use of what I call boons, what we would call boons. Boons are gifts or blessings given from somebody more powerful than the PCs are. Because I particularly like to use the divine in my games and for that to be present in the campaign world, these come up a lot for me. And I also like to give a gift of something that's useful or cool, but not necessarily like extra to hit or extra damage in these kind of games. Things that are unique and give variation are great for boons. In the case of D&D or maybe Pathfinder, I often consider feats as possible boons, or at least that kind of being used as a starting point for me to work through to find something I want to give out to a player as a GM. These not only help mechanically, but they also add a depth to the bond between the character and whoever it is that gave them. A boon can be given freely or as part of like a covenant or a pact. Just like the gift of a powerful item, it's not just about the mechanical advantage, but about the story that can be told around it and the kind of gift that can shape an entire campaign for a character or even a party. This is a very simple way to give the players a sense of accomplishment and progress. It's one of the simplest ways to tie a reward to the story is to give boons or gifts like that as a reward for something that's happened. But there is like a darker side, gifts with strings attached. I think this can like play a really awesome role in your campaign setting when you have gifts in our games that are not just about powering up, and it can be another tool in our gifting kit is giving that gifts with strings attached. Sometimes a blessing also comes with a price. These gifts can come in the form of promises or debts that the character will have to pay back later. Maybe a character receives a powerful magic item from an NPC, but in return the NPC asks for a favor in the future. Maybe they need to call upon the character at a crucial moment, or maybe they want something even more sinister that will come out later in the game. A great example of this mechanically is what's called the quote gift spot in the negotiation part of the Red Markets RPG. It's well worth checking out. The NPC that the group is negotiating with at the start of the game to find a job can give a gift to help them in that job that they have. And it gives more weight to that NPC's negotiation power. There's this whole continuum, this track that you're moving back on and forth on as you negotiate, and it helps that NPC, that character, to push on that negotiation while not being able to be rejected without it being like a massive faux pas on the part of the takers and part of the players. The group gets a helpful gift, but it may come back to bite them later, and it definitely helps the person they're negotiating against in the moment. So that's an example, of something that could work that way. But the gift with strings attached concept can be a great way to keep your players on their toes, and it can introduce moral dilemmas. Should they accept a gift, knowing that there are potential consequences? I think that's a fun thing to throw in front of them. And what will they have to sacrifice later on for the sake of this new power? Maybe there's something kind of hanging over them because they took it. There's also a third way, and it goes a little bit beyond the gift with strings attached, and it's what I would call the Trojan horse gift. Gifts with hidden agendas. We have the Trojan horse story in the Iliad, right? The horse is given as this gift and it's taken into the city, but there's actually soldiers inside of it, and they are able to, conquer the city at that point. If we go a step farther with gift giving, we get into the real trickery place, these Trojan horses. These are gifts that on the surface maybe appear to be kind-hearted or helpful, but in reality, they could turn out to be treacherous to the party. These kind of gifts are often used by villains, manipulative NPCs, or even rival adventurers to deceive or control the characters. A classic example of this is when an NPC gives a character a gift, but the gift is actually a scrying device. Or maybe in a modern game, it's like a tracker or a bug. Maybe they give them this item that's enchanted to keep the character under surveillance, so that they can know, what's going on and what the movements are and what people are talking about. Or you could have a situation where the gift is seeming to be a powerful weapon, but when it's most needed, it fails. But I think as a GM, we need to be careful because it could feel like you as the GM are the one pulling the rug out from under them rather than it being the NPC that betrays them. There needs to be some setup to that, even if it's a secret. There even can be gifts given by enemies that create division in the party. We're actually going to have a conversation about this on an episode at some point. But what we're going to be looking at in that is like what happens when division is kind of sown within that. And gifts can do that. Picture a rival adventurer who offers a gift to one party member. Maybe it's this powerful item or a boon, knowing that it'll cause tension among the group. Maybe there's an evil creature out there that's trying to win over one of the PCs to its side. This could be a subtle way for the antagonist to drive a wedge between the characters, setting up future conflicts and choices that have to be made. So Trojan horse gifts aren't just plot twists. They're ways to shift the party dynamic. They can create distrust, or they can even cause long-term weakening to the party. And what makes these gifts more interesting to me is that when they come from entities that the characters trust, there's this extra element added to that. And in the end, that makes it even more dangerous to them. So to wrap up a little bit, whether it's a gift that empowers or one that tests loyalty, or maybe one that leaves the PCs questioning everyone around them, the way gifts are used in TTRPGs can have a great impact on the game, a huge one. There are opportunities to deepen the narrative. They could challenge the players, and they obviously can boost them as heroes if they have these powerful items that they're getting or powerful boons that are being given to them. So that really wraps up what I wanted to talk about today in this short episode on gifts in TTRPGs. I hope you've got some new ideas for your campaigns as you think through that, whether you're handing out gifts that help or gifts that have a darker twist. So thanks for joining me today. Next week we will be off again for Christmas, but we will be back on January 2nd with guest Josh Morton and me and Matthew back with him. So in the meantime, happy holidays.